What's up, Jet fans? My name is Ashraf, and joining me today is Connor Hughes from SNY TV. How are you, Connor?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm good. I know you're a busy man, but let's get started right away. Right now, the hot topic is the head coach position. So, who are your favorites in this head coaching race?
Yeah, man. I think I think you kind of got to weigh sort of like what the Jets are doing right now with weighing what they want to do, what they think they want to do, what they're intrigued with. But all things considered, I think probably the best bet for them, if this was just as far as the Jets picking whoever they wanted and they knew that guy was going to take the job, is McCarthy. And that's because, I mean, look, this is a team that I think could definitely benefit from a coach with head coaching experience, which McCarthy has. I mean, aside from the fact he's got a Super Bowl ring around his finger, he also has a pretty good win-loss record in the regular season as well. You don't see too many coaches with that kind of a record available for the taking. The Jets obviously are looking for a coach that can help develop Sam Darnold, and that's something that Mike McCarthy was able to do, both in helping Aaron Rodgers reach his full potential and then also kind of rejuvenating Brett Favre's career later on. And I think that he's also a guy that has instilled some discipline within his team, and he's a guy that I think a lot of people respect. When you have someone come in there who's been there and done that, I think that it goes a long way. So now, if you're looking at some of these other guys, I mean, obviously Rule, the guy Baylor, he's an interesting candidate. I don't know if Kingsbury is somebody that the Jets would realistically look for as a head coach, but he's certainly an interesting candidate if they can get him in as an offensive coordinator. But I think that all things considered, if you're looking for the guy that's best for this team right now, I think it is McCarthy.
So it's probably like a dream situation right now for a coach to come in because, you got Sam Darnold, you got Jamal Adams, you got $100 million in cap space, and you get a third overall pick. Do you think this team's on the right track for finally getting back on track on winning games?
Yeah, I think they could be, man, because the key obviously is making the right moves, right? The Jets have the right tools I guess they have the right means to gather the tools, but if you pick the wrong tools, it's not going to work. You know what I mean? Like if you've got to build a house and all you come in with is a screwdriver and a hammer, you're not going to get very far. You know what I mean? You need the right pieces, and I think the Jets have the means to acquire those pieces, but will they? You know what I mean? If they go out there and they're able to sign 3 or 4 really notable, important free agents, and then you're able to find a stud there with the number 3 pick in the draft and also get a couple starters there with your 2 third-round picks. I mean, suddenly you've got a team that you patch some holes and you're ready to go, and you have a franchise quarterback that's now in year 2 and a coach that's really going to make all the difference. I mean, turnarounds in the NFL can happen quick. I mean, look across the league, and you see teams that don't make the playoffs one year and a really bad one year, and they do the complete 180, and they're one of the better teams in the league the next season. So the Jets are absolutely positioned well to do it. They just have to now do it. And I think that means acquiring good players. It means adding to this roster. It means filling things out. And more importantly, drafting and really making this draft count. Because you can usually buy a playoff appearance in free agency, but free agency isn't going to build your team into a continual winner. So for the Jets, I think that's the big thing, is you got to patch some holes in free agency and then really start to continue to improve that foundation in the draft.
Speaking of free agency, which free agents would you think the Jets would target? I know they have $100 million in cap space, but the Colts have more than them. But yeah. So who would they target?
I think they definitely should look to address the offensive line. I know there's a couple players out there that they could potentially go with. The big one that I think is most interesting is if DeMarcus Lawrence hits free agency. I know that some people think that he might. Some people think the Cowboys might tag him again, so that's a possibility. But I think that you kind of got to – the thing with free agency is you need to look at who's out there and you need to kind of weigh where you can find the pieces that are going to be best for your team. So for the Jets in the draft, you got to look for what are you going to look for there, and then what's available in free agency, and reverse that. What can you get in free agency that maybe you can't in the draft? But I think that if they could potentially land DeMarcus Lawrence in free agency – and then come back and maybe draft Josh Allen, or if Nick Bosa falls to them, grab one of those guys. Suddenly that defense is set. I mean, you're fine on the defensive side of the ball, and then you can work throughout the rest of free agency and the rest of your draft on rounding out the offense. But I think that he's probably the most prized acquisition. Obviously, the center, I think, for the Broncos is going to be a free agent. Rodgers Saffold I believe he plays for the Rams. He's a guard. He could be a free agent. I don't think there's any top-tier offensive tackles that they can go out and get. There's certainly not wide receivers there either. But I think that you can this free agency looks like it's pretty deep with pass rushers in terms of even if Lawrence isn't there, you can probably go out there and grab Dante Fowler for cheaper. So there's going to be some good players. They just got to go get them.
So with like if you like you were saying like to get a pass rusher, would you if they get it in free agency and these guys are available for them and they sign them, what would you think of getting maybe like a wide receivers in the draft? So like to get more weapons for Darnold to like get a number one wide receiver.
Yeah, they definitely need to get a receiver. I mean, that's something they need to do. The issue with where they're picking right now is that there isn't necessarily a receiver worth. And that again, from scouts I've talked to and guys who are very familiar with this draft, they've all kind of said that there isn't a top 8, 9, 10 receiver or not a receiver worth a top 10 pick in the draft in this class. But if the Jets were to trade back to, say, in the teens, a team goes up to number 3 to get a quarterback and the Jets move back because Bosa's gone and Josh Allen's gone or however that shakes out, then I could see him targeting a receiver in the draft. But more likely, I think if they're going to go out there and get a true number one for Darnold, they're probably going to have to do it by trading. A.J. Green might be available. He's on the final year of his deal in Cincinnati, and people aren't sure if he's going to be or if the Bengals are going to be willing to pay him that final year if they enter that full-on rebuild. And the other guy, Mike Evans, same thing, is if Tampa decides to go into a full-on rebuild, they might look to move him. Antonio Brown, I know I saw the report the other day, or I think it was yesterday, I saw the report that they might be looking to trade him as well. So I think if the Jets are going to get a receiver, I don't think it's going to come in free agency. I don't think it's going to come in the draft. I think they'll probably have to actually trade for one.
Okay. So overall, how do you think the fans should feel about this team moving forward? I know this is probably one of the most important off seasons in a while for the Jets. So what do you think the fans should feel?
Yeah, look, man, I think that they should feel optimism. I know a lot of people are down on Mike McCagnon, and you're kind of annoyed that this wasn't a full clean the slate and start over. But I think that you need to feel optimism. And the reason you should feel optimism is because the Jets, for the first time in 4 decades, have a franchise quarterback. Sam Darnold is the real deal. He is only going to get better. And as long as he doesn't get hurt and the Jets can help him reach that franchise quarterback potential, they're going to be in contention for the next 10 to 12 years. Obviously you have to fill out the roster. You need to surround him with talent. You need to build this thing around Darnold now. But the fact that you have a quarterback, that is the hardest piece to get in the NFL. That is the most difficult part of the equation. And it's the one of the most coveted pieces to the puzzle. So once you have that, it's so much easier to round everything else around them. But you need to get that piece first. The Jets have that piece now. They've got their Sam Darnold. They've got their franchise quarterback. They're ready to go. And now the rest of it's so much easier. It's not going to be perfect. There's still going to be lumps. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done. But the fact that the Jets have a franchise quarterback, that they have a guy that they know the most important position in professional sports is solidified, makes everything else on this thing just that much easier. And the fact that you want reason to be optimism, that's it. It's number 14. The fact that Jets have him, he's under control, and they can now help him reach his potential and then build this thing around him. I mean, that's all the reason in the world to be optimistic about this thing going forward.
For fans, what I usually see is like the last couple of games when Darnold came back, the way he played, and a couple of games where he played against Aaron Rodgers and went over and he competed with him. People are thinking like, oh, this is the real deal, and it should be the real deal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this was always going to be a learning year, and he was always going to take his lumps. And honestly, if he even finished the year struggling, it probably wasn't going to change too much for the 2019 season because he still would have had a new coach, a new chance to develop, and a new chance to kind of turn the corner as a sophomore. Which, I mean, look, Jared Goff was terrible as a rookie and then lit up the league in year 2. But I think the fact that he did look so good those final 4 games, and he did show so much improvement, and he did go toe to toe with some of those pretty much. I mean, the way that he ended that season, I mean, he looked tremendous in a couple of those games, and was a reason the Jets were in a position to win so many of them. So I think that the way that he finished the year just kind of adds to that good feeling. You know what I mean? It probably doesn't impact anything going forward. I don't think that him lighting it up the final 2 games or 3 games is really going to make that big of a difference grand scheme of things, because he's still going to have to, take a step forward in the offseason and whatnot. But for the fans and people looking on the outside to be able to see Darnold play well as he did, it just makes you feel so much better about this team.
All right. Let's listen to some fan questions. So one fan, of course, is going to ask this question, but do you have any info on the Jets' new uniforms?
Everyone asks me this, man. I don't have too much more. I don't have any additional information about the new uniforms. I think they'll probably be unveiling them pretty soon. Obviously, I've kind of been focused in on this coaching search and things like that, so I haven't done too much uniform scoopage. But once the Jets make this hire, I think maybe I'll be able to dive into that a little bit more.
And another fan said you usually tweet about like you're a Marvel fanatic, and then you're a Game of Thrones fanatic too.
Yep.
So are you excited about the new movie and like the final season of Game of Thrones?
Oh man, I can't wait. That's my thing, dude. Is I love that stuff, and I was never like a big comic book guy growing up or anything like that. I used to watch the cartoons. Like I watched the old X-Men cartoons and the old SpiderMan cartoons, and then when they started making those into movies was when I really got kind of dove into the whole Marvel scene. But yeah, I'm thrilled. It's Avengers Endgame, I think is what they gave the title for it. So I'm really curious to see how they're gonna bring it all in, because I know they quote unquote they killed Spider-Man, they killed Black Panther, they did all that stuff, but they're not. I mean, there's way too much money in those franchises for them to actually have killed off those characters for good. So I'm really intrigued how they're going to bring them back. Who isn't going to survive? Is this going to be the end of Captain America? And is Tony Stark going to be written off as well? It's kind of like, the weird thing is that this thing's been going on for so long, right? I think it's been 10, I don't think it's 20 yet, but probably 10, 12 years of movies. Yeah. And it's kind of all been worked towards this, culmination. And to see, I remember, I forget where I was flying. I think it might have been the Dolphin game. But I went back and on the plane, I watched the old, the first Iron Man movie, the thing that kind of started this, which I was like, yeah, it's all, like, just to think about how that's where it started and now where it is today is insane. And I'm really curious to see how they're going to end this one. And then Game of Thrones, yeah, I'm equal parts excited and equal parts nervous, because I know they're going to kill off people in that show. And it's kind of, you got to wonder, is Daenerys going to make it? Is Jon Snow going to make it? What's going to happen with the two Stark girls? It's certainly, I'm intrigued, but like I said, I'm also a little nervous.
Were you able to go see the new SpiderMan movie?
I haven't actually. That's on tap for tomorrow. On Tuesday, I'm gonna go check that out. I've got a theater near my house that does movie tickets on Tuesday. New, old movies, whatever's out in theaters, you can go see them for super cheap. So I'm actually gonna go check out that one and the Queen movie as well. I'm gonna try to make it the 2 for Tuesday.
Are you into any DC movies or no?
Yeah, no, I am. Yeah, I watch them. I was always more of a Marvel fan growing up. It was like X-Men, Spider-Man, that kind of thing. But obviously with Batman, Superman, you always, as a kid, you love that stuff too. So I've watched them, I've followed them. I think the thing with DC was that, and this is just kind of opinion, is when Marvel started putting together the idea of doing origin movies and then the big, kind of come together movie in the Avengers, it's almost like DC heard of that plan and were like, you know what, that's not going to work. And then when they saw the money that Marvel started making by doing all of these different movies, they were like, all right, let's play catch up. And they just started rushing. And that's why you got kind of an okay Superman movie, but that set the stage for a really, really bad Batman Superman movie. And then Justice League was not awful, but it also wasn't very good. And then, Wonder Woman was a very good movie. They did well on that one, but it felt so rushed and so questionable. And, I remember reading a review, and I don't remember who wrote it, but it was a review on the comparisons between like Marvel and DC. And they said in one of the Thor movies, they threw on Captain America had an extra in the film. He Loki basically transformed into him for like a quick 10-second scene and then went back to being Loki. And he said that when he watched in that theater, the author said when he watched the movie in that theater, when Captain America came on the screen, the whole theater started clapping and yelling. And it was like, holy, because everyone, it's like, oh, it's Captain America. Everyone knows who it is. In DC, they did something similar where they tried to, sorry, my Alexa started going off. In DC, they tried to do something where they put in like a Flash cameo or something like that in one of the Batman Superman movies. And they showed Flash. And all of a sudden, like, the whole theater was silent. And it's because, like, no one in that theater has, like, a bond to that character. But in Marvel, because of how they've built this up and did all the origin stories, you kind of feel like an emotional attachment to all these characters that when you see them, you're like, oh my God, I know who it is. You know what I mean? So I think that DC just rushed it, and there's so much potential there because there's so many big-time characters in the DC universe. But, I mean, it's been pretty poor follow-through on their part, and it's upsetting because, I mean, it could be so much better than what it is.
Yeah, Marvel pretty much outweighs DC right now by a long shot, but DC definitely has potential. Another question was, tonight's a big game, Alabama versus Clemson. Who you got?
Oh, man, I think I'm going to take Alabama just because I can't. It's really tough to see Alabama losing that game. But I'll tell you what, dude, I love that Clemson quarterback. The long hair, everything like that. Man, he reminds me of Sunshine from Remember the Titans. It's just like I love it, man. I think that kid's going to be good. In fact, I think he's a better quarterback than Tua is, and I think you'll probably see that over the next couple of years when they battle it out. But these are probably the two best teams in college football, and I'm interested to see that Clemson offense go up basically against an NFL defense in Alabama, and see how they play it out. But also, Alabama's looked a little not weak, but maybe vulnerable when they played Georgia, and then last week, the Oklahoma gave them a little bit of a scare late in the game. So I'm kind of intrigued to see how this one plays out. But for now, I'll take Alabama.
Oh yeah, you always gotta take Alabama. You can't go against them.
Yeah, you can't bet against them.
Yeah, you can't go against them. So final is what do you think about this offseason? Do you think the Jets will be the same old Jets, or they're gonna actually come out and do what they have to do? Because Mike McKinney is on the hot spot too. They're all fans are getting anxious. You can't, and you got your franchise quarterback finally. You can't really mess this up. You can't.
Yeah. I think here's what I'll say. I think that the Jets will position themselves to be a significantly improved team in 2019. Mike McCagnon is a guy who I think is a little fearful of his job. He's going to be aggressive in free agency. And whenever you are that aggressive in free agency, you position yourself to have that quick flash. You know what I mean? Like when you buy your team in free agency, that first year you're going to get a spark. Those veteran players are going to play well. You're going to be a good team that year. You saw it from think about the spending spree the Giants went on when they brought in Damon Harrison and Janoris Jenkins. They made the playoffs in 2016. And the Jets, 2015, they get Brandon Marshall via trade. They sign all those guys in free agency, Revis, Cromartie, Screen, all those. Marcus Gilchrist was one of those guys as well. They came within one game of the playoffs in 2015. But the issue with buying a team in free agency and not drafting well is that the ensuing 2, 3, 4 years, you start going downhill, because as those players age or those players get nicked up and you have to replace them with the guys you've drafted and your drafting has been so poor, there's no way to build, have basically continued sustained success. So I think the Jets in 2019 are going to be a good team. I think that there is a very good chance that they make the playoffs. I think that they will have a 10, potentially 11-win year. I think they'll be better than the Dolphins. They'll be better than the Bills. I don't think they'll beat the Patriots for the division, but they'll be right there fighting for a wild card spot, and they very well might get the wild card spot. The issue is that I just don't trust Mike McCagnon enough in the draft and college evaluation to believe that he will make the right moves in this year's draft to have that be sustained success. So it would not surprise me at all if the Jets flash in 2019 and in 2020-21 they kind of start falling back to earth. Maybe that's 10 wins in 19, then they're back to 9, 8, 7 wins over the next couple of years. We'll see, but I think that Mike McCagnon needs to show a little bit more as a talent evaluator in the collegiate ranks to make sure that the Jets are a continued winner, not just a flashy team. So in 2019, they're going to flash. They're going to sign the guys that are going to make them a very decent team next year, but I don't know if it's going to be continued just because I haven't seen enough to have faith in McCagnon yet.
I had just one more question. I had a personal.
Yeah, sure.
Like you just said about his drafting, of how he drafts, I'm a little questionable about that too. But if they bring a college coach in, like Kingsbury, do you think it'll maybe impact how he drafts because they'll have a college guy there inside with them, helping them out?
It depends. I mean, the thing is when you bring in a college coach, they're familiar usually with the guys in their conference or the guys on their team. You know what I mean? That's like when the Eagles hired Chip Kelly, and every draft he seemed to pick an Oregon Duck, right? I mean, every player that Chip Kelly drafted was from Oregon. It's similar in that regard, but I don't think it's too much like that. And the other thing is, if the Jets bring in a college coach, they're not going to give him personnel control. That's something that they will not do. They're not going to give a college coach control of the personnel. It will be more Mike McCagnon. In fact, if you want Mike McCagnon to lose some personnel control, you want the pro guy coming in, the experienced coach that the Jets might be willing to hand some control over to him, just in order, like a Mike McCarthy. If Mike McCarthy put his foot down and said, I want X percentage of a say in personnel, I think that when the Jets push comes to shove, I think the Jets might give it to him. We'll say, obviously, Christopher Johnson said that's not what he would do, but I think that the right situation, I could see it happening. But no, I don't necessarily think a college coach will help with the evaluation. It's because it's kind of just it's a different animal. College evaluation and scouting for pros is different than game planning when you're a college coach.
Okay. Thank you for your time, Connor.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Hopefully we'll talk to you later after everything's done, and we'll see what's going on with this team.
Yeah, man, we'll check. Who cares? Yeah, dude, definitely. I mean, next time we talk, they might have a new coach from free agency. Maybe it's Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown. Who knows? We'll see. It's
never
it's certainly going to be an eventful.
You never know. By the end of the week, we might have a new head coach. So
that is true, man. That is true.
All right. Have a nice day.